Hello Stampers, it's Debbie with Stamp It with Debbie, and today I have a fun fold card to show you using the Leave a Little Sparkle stamp set. And I'm not sure of the name of this fold, but you can see the little greeting inside spins around, and this is what the card looks like from the top and the little side views. So it's kind of an X shape, and it will stand up on its own. So when you send it to someone, they can leave it up and be able to see the little greeting spin back and forth if they choose. So let's get started and I'll show you how to create this fun card. The first thing you're going to need, and today I'm using Gorgeous Grape, 2 pieces of cardstock cut at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and then we also need some kind of designer paper cut at 4 by 5 1/4, and again I'm using Gorgeous Grape, and this is the 6 by 6 paper stacks. We need to do a little bit of scoring here, so I'm going to get my scoreboard, and we need to score these 2 pieces here on the short end here at 2 inches and 2 1/4 inches. And we're going to do that with both of these cardstock, not the designer paper, but the cardstock. So that's the scoring for right now. And I'm going to bring my Big Shot up because we need to do a little bit of Big Shot work. What we're going to be doing now is creating the hole that is made here, and how I created that is I used the layering circle. So this piece here is the one that we'll use for this outer piece and the card base, and then this one here just needs to be a little bit smaller. So if you don't have these exact layering circles, anything will work as long as you have one that's bigger for the outer and the smaller one so this can move freely inside. So we're going to use the bigger one, and we don't want to put adhesive on just yet, so we're going to go ahead and line this up just how we want the card to be when we get ready to put adhesive, but we don't want to put adhesive just yet, and I'll show you why in just a minute. But let's go ahead and line this up here, and it doesn't have to be a perfect centered there, just kind of eyeball it. And I'm going to run it through the Big Shot back, and then I'm going to bring it back the other way just because it's 2 layers. And I'll keep these pieces and use them for another time. So I need to do the same thing for this other set. I'm going to go ahead and match it up best I can, but now this time I also want to take this piece that I've already cut and layer it on top of here to use kind of as a guide. That way we'll be sure that our circle is cut in the exact same position for both pieces. So I'm going to carefully set that down, and then the framelits have a little lip on the back, and if you just kind of push it around a little bit, it'll catch in that hole and it'll match right up. So just be careful when you put the top plate on that you don't move that circle framelit anywhere. And again, I'm going to run this through a couple times just because we're dealing with a couple layers here. Okay, so that is all of the Big Shot work we have. And again, I'm going to put those circles aside. So I'm going to keep this one and this one together. Now, I did go ahead and cut already so that I didn't have to do it on camera, 2 circles out of the white, and I did stamp my image. I'll go ahead and color that, but so I need 2 of them because we're going to glue them together. Now the next thing that we need to do is attach each of these pieces onto the cardstock, the designer paper. And I'm going to use the Tombow multi-purpose adhesive. And the reason I said I would tell you later why I didn't adhere these before, because if you just put adhesive around and then you cut this circle out, there's a chance the parts around the circle might not be attached to the cardstock, and it would leave a little gap in the card, and I didn't want to do that, so that's why I didn't adhere it before I cut it. This way we know that there'll be a good bond right here all the way around the circle. Okay, that one's good, so we also have to do this one. And we don't want to get the glue too close to the circle that we cut, because if the glue happens to come out of the circle, then it'll kind of make a mess. So just get it close enough, but not too close. All right, so here's our second piece. Now you could use any permanent adhesive. I like the Tombow Multi-Purpose just because it gives me a few minutes or a few seconds to do it, unlike the say Fast Fuse or Tear and Tape. It would seal pretty quickly on there. So we do need to do a little stamping on the back. As you can see here, I stamped the stars from the stamp set. So I'm going to grab a piece of scrap paper to put under here first of all. And then I have Gorgeous Grape ink and the stars, and I'm just going to randomly stamp those. All over the back. On both pieces. It goes pretty quickly, and I like the effect of this. You could, if you wanted to, put coordinating cardstock or designer paper on both the sides if you wanted to. I just like the stars a lot, so I thought that they would look really cute on the back side. I think I'm going to add just a few more over here. That's probably a lot, but I really like the stars. Okay, so now we have to come back to this score line here, and you can just go ahead and crease the paper, but I found that it tends to wrinkle the designer paper that's on the back here. So what I want to do is I'm going to go back on the side with the cardstock, not the designer paper, and I'm just going to score real quick on that back side. Because if you remember, the first time we scored, we didn't have the designer paper on there. Okay, now we want to turn it over, and we want to try to get in those same lines. Be very careful not to rip your designer paper where it has an 1/8 of an inch gap down here or border on the end. Be careful when you're taking your stylus here over that edge so that it doesn't rip the paper on you. All right, just one more here and we can start putting our card together. It's just really important to do this because, as I said, I tested a lot of different ways to make this work, and this seems to be the best way. Okay, so we're all done with that part. And now before we put them together, we do want to bend our score marks, and the first time I bent them out towards the designer paper, and then I took it back the other way. Just again to kind of give that designer paper time to get bent in and it doesn't get wrinkled up. And actually I probably could use my bone folder, might give me even a better crease here. Just creasing it down really well, and again I'm going to fold it back to the cardstock side. Use my bone folder. And I think I will just, because I have my bone folder, I'll do this side too. Okay, now the next thing to be very careful about is we want to make sure, because we're putting these together to be one card, that we have them right side up. Because if you accidentally have one upside down, unless you are exactly in the center of your paper, your circle's not going to match up. So we want to make sure that we have both circles facing either up or down, whichever you prefer, but just in the same direction. Next, I'm going to take tear and tape, and I'm just going to run it along this little area that has the scoring here. So the little 1/4 inch gap between there. And then I can go ahead and remove the backing, and I'm just going to take my finger and kind of bring the adhesive, if it's running over that 1/4 inch score line, kind of bring it into the center. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one. So you can see this is a little bit long. All I need to do is use my finger to bring that up, and then I'm just going to kind of roll the edge, if any of it goes over that score, the line that I scored, and then back again this way, just to make sure that it doesn't go over the score line. Okay, so again, I'm going to make sure they're going in the right direction. I'm going to set those aside for just a minute, because now I need to do a little stamping and coloring. So I'm going to stamp on this piece, and I'm going to use the greeting, leave a little sparkle wherever you go. I'm stamping that in Bermuda Bay. And then I'm going to bring back that star stamp, and I just want to stamp a couple stars over here off to the side. And then I do need my Stampin' Blends markers, and I'm going to color my unicorn in here. So I'm using dark Pineapple Punch for the center of the flower, light Lovely Lipstick. It's a nice bright color, a bright pink color for anything you need to color bright pink. And then I think that I'm going to use my dark Bermuda Bay for the horn here. And then I'm going to use light Highland Heather for the hair. I don't know about you, but I really, really love the Stampin' Blends markers. I love how they let you color without leaving lines. You can blend with them, and they just leave a really nice coloring for all my projects. So this is kind of my go-to. I sometimes forget about my colored pencils, so you could very easily color this here in with colored pencils or regular markers if you had them, but I just prefer the Stampin' Blends markers. They do get a little squeaky sometimes. And then one thing that I did that I kind of liked is, and I maybe should have colored some of it in before, but I don't know if you've ever heard of unicorn hair. If you haven't, it's kind of where it's blue and purple, and I think there's one other color in there, so I just thought it would look cute to add a few little strands. And then the last thing that I want to do is I am taking a two-way glue pen. It's just like a little glue stick, and I'm just gonna put it on top here, and that just leaves a wet glue line, and I'm just gonna put some loose fine glitter on here. This is our Dazzling Diamonds glitter. And now it's really sparkly. So I can set these pieces aside, and now put this aside so that I don't end up with it all over. And now we're going to take this piece here and turn it over, and we need to use some silver metallic thread, and we're just going to lay this, let me bring it up here so you can see it a little better. We're going to lay it across the center, so we're going to need to look at the front and figure out where the middle is. But how we're going to do that is a little easier. I'm going to run a little bit of adhesive. Well, actually I'm going to run a lot of adhesive. So here you could use a really strong liquid adhesive, but the first, for the thread, you need to have a line of like a tape runner, snail, or something else, tear and tape, just to hold the thread on. So I want to make sure that this is centered, because I'm going to use this center mark to put my unicorn on so that it's straight on both sides. So now that it's like that, I am going to take a little piece of Scotch tape just to kind of make sure it holds in place there. And then now that I know that this side is straight, you can see that the thread is coming out the top and the bottom straight across. I'm going to turn it over, and this way it makes it easier for me to line up my unicorn. Okay, and just squeeze down and make sure that it's adhered very well. So now you have this piece here. Now we can come back to these two pieces. Again, it's very important that you make sure that you have them both going the same way, so when you bring them together, they're going to line up. I'm going to put this just in the center here, and you want to make sure that it kind of has equal room all the way around, or equal space. You don't have to measure it at all, just kind of eyeball it. And you're going to run that silver thread down the center of the tear and tape that we put on there previously. Next, we're going to take this piece and we're going to bring it over, and since we only have adhesive in the middle, it's a little bit easier. Just make sure that all of our corners are lined up very well. Oh, looks like my thread came out there. So just make sure that it's still in there. And then we're going to push down on that area where we put the tear and tape. And I'm actually going to use my bone folder in there to make sure that it's nice and secured to the other side, since this is the only place that we have adhesive. So now I can take my paper snips and just snip off that excess thread on the top and the bottom. And then our card is good. It's ready to stand up. How do you like that? Now we could go ahead and put some rhinestones on here if we want to. If you wanted to sign your message, you could do it here on the inside. You could even put a little piece of white paper in here if you want to. You could sign it before you put it together if it was easier. But who wouldn't love a little unicorn on their desk spinning and giving them a little greeting? Now the stamp set does also have a couple other little words in it, believe and dreams, make your dreams come true. So you could easily punch that out and put on here. And as I said, you could decorate the outside with a few more rhinestones if you would like. But I thought that this was a really unique kind of card, and I wanted to share the tutorial with you, and I hope that you really like it. I also wanted to tell you that I never send out, I shouldn't say never, I try to never send out naked envelopes. So I did already stamp my unicorn here, and I wanted to tell you, if you're stamping on your envelopes and using the blender pens, you do want to put a little note card or something inside, because the Stampin' Blends markers tend to bleed through a little bit. So this way you'll save it from going through onto the other side of your envelope. This will lay flat and mail out just in a regular size envelope very easily, and I think it's very clear when you open it up how the card is supposed to stand, and your receiver is going to love it. So thank you so much for watching my video today, and if you have any questions, I'm going to leave a link below over to my blog where I'll have further instructions and all the measurements so that you can refer back to that. If you need any supplies for this or any other project, I would love to be your Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. You can visit my store today at stampitwithdebbie.stampinup.net. Thank you so much for visiting my video today, and I hope that you have enjoyed this project.